Our next guest tackled a suicide bomber to save countless lives. Medal of Honor recipient Flo Groberg joins the pod to unpack how he was a French immigrant coming to America, how his family had issues with extremists that actually took his uncle's life, that he had to fight to just be a part of something greater than himself, and ultimately was led to the opportunity to act with courage and bravery in a split second. Flo is the epitome of somebody that has gained the opportunity to be a patriot. Flo is one that's always there to empower others, not just service members, but others living in this country to be patriots too. Y'all join me in this conversation. You're gonna find some real awe-inspiring moments.
You too,
Thank you for doing this. Flo Groberg, welcome to the Life After podcast.
Fired up.
So, listen, man, this for us is as laid back as anything, just us hanging out. It's perfect. So we got the gloves off, but I do want to start, back in the beginning, man.
Yeah.
You weren't born in this country.
That's a fact.
Yeah. So tell us, man, what it was to be an American immigrant, but tell us about being born in France and your young life and family.
I was born just outside of Paris, and interestingly enough, I was born in an area that the French, when I got the medal, I'm skipping many years now, later on, they called it the ghetto of Paris, right? But when you grow up in that type of environment, that's the only environment that you know. It was home, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. My mom, that is my actual aunt biologically. So her sister had me, and then she adopted me. And so it was really just her and I for the first couple of years of my life. And she went through hell and back to make sure that she provided enough for us. She chose me. She took me into her home. And so that's something that I did not know until I was about 6 years old. So I knew that she had met this guy named Larry, who was on a business trip. And he was American, and he barely spoke, he spoke French, but it was ugly. But so I knew he wasn't my father, right? And I never really truly asked questions about who's my dad, but I thought she was my mom. So when I was 6 years old, her other sister, she's got 11 brothers and sisters. Yeah. Over right before Christmas, comes up to me and she says, "Hey, what do you want for Christmas?" And I said, "Well, I asked Santa to get me this, and this." She's like, Santa doesn't exist. So she broke that to me.
Just dream killer right out the gate.
And then I said, well, my mom is always like, she's like, which mom? I said, what do you mean which mom? Like my mom. And she's like, well, your mom is your aunt because Kera is your actual mother. And so I was like, it blew my mind. It blew my world. It actually wasn't a good time in my life because as a kid, I was really confused. But I tell you this because it's fascinating the stages you go through in life, right? And those very pivotal moments that really change who you are. And I remember that conversation like it was yesterday, and I was 6 years old. And I remember how I felt. And so my life changed at that point in France.
Can I interrupt and ask how you felt? Was it, I understand.
I felt betrayed. I felt betrayed. I felt for a moment like my mom wasn't my mom. And it was absolutely fascinating. And I felt betrayed by my aunt, who I was really close with, right? And I was confused, right? And it didn't make sense. And then on top of that, Santa wasn't real, right?
Let me just drop a little more.
Yeah, what is going on here?
So your mom,
yeah,
really your aunt, but your mom, was she pissed at her sister for dropping all this on you? Without her being able
100%, absolutely. I mean, it was one of those moments where there's a time and place in the process to
your innocence, right?
Have those conversations with the kid, with your kid, and she robbed her of that responsibility of both my mom, my biological mother, and my adopted mother, but that was really short lived, because in the end, what my mom said to me that I still remember to this day is, we're the same blood, right? So it doesn't really matter. And she's like, I love you. She loves you, but I love you. You're my son. And that kind of reassured me, oh, you're right. It took a little bit of time. And to this day, that's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. Between her and Larry adopting me, there's no better feeling than to feel like, oh, wow, they chose me.
You belong.
Right? You belong. And so to them. And the amount of time, tears, financials, investments in me, and the opportunities it provided me were unbelievable. So, but grew up in France was awesome. I mean,
you didn't know it was ghetto.
No, and by the way, I spent 90% of my time outside. When you're not in a classroom or having dinner at home, outside. It was judo, it was soccer, it was just being hooligans out in the neighborhood.
Yeah. Sports were big.
Sports is huge, and soccer is the mecca of France, right? It is the sport, and so every day you're outside. And that's where I spend the majority of my time. My mom worked from, she'd leave at 7 a.m. and she'd come back at like 6, 7 p.m., which in France is normal because you eat dinner late. Mm-hmm. But I was on my own. Yeah. I'm talking about like 5 years old.
So the streets were safe. I mean.
Yeah. It's like the streets took care of their own.
Got it.
Right? There were the issues and stuff, and that was usually gang related, and it was literally town gangs versus town gangs, but it never impacted me.
Yeah.
Like it's almost, I don't know, it's a weird thing where it's an enclosure, right? We didn't have drive-bys, okay? There wasn't a thing over there. Weapons are not, the same as it here. We had a lot of like Grease, I think, is a movie where like literally like gangs would meet gangs in a park and fight each other. Yeah. And so the whole point is like you grew up in this environment and then you join a gang, probably around like 9, 10 years old. Like, and that's like your neighborhood area. You're part of it.
It's your squad, right?
It's a squad. Yeah. And then you just go fight and it gets pretty ridiculous. But I was on that trajectory.
You were.
100%. I mean, it's almost like you can't avoid it.
Yeah.
And with my personality,
all in.
Yeah, I was just like, wanted to be part of the cool kids, and I was a fighter because I fought in the judo.
Yeah.
I personally feel like I understand to an extent how kids get recruited into gangs in different areas and everywhere. You don't even know it's happening.
Yeah.
It feels like it's natural.
Yeah, it's not like they said today's your initiation, right? But like at some point, like all young men, probably especially young men, need validation. They need that place to belong, and if your parents aren't around or not having oversight on you, it's probably easy to fall into that.
Yeah, this is what you see in front of you, and this is what's cool. Yeah. This is and what earns respect.
How did Larry impact like that dynamic, the path that you were on, and ultimately like talk a little bit about his presence and I guess the impact that he had.
He was different, man. He's just meant a few words.
Yeah.
Meant a few words. And, he was a big, imposing sort of figure. Mm-hmm. He was, in his heydays, he was 6'1", 195, 200 pounds, just a, strong guy, businessman, never yelled, ever, right? He's never raised his hand, nothing against me or nothing.
What kind of business was he in?
He was working for Motorola. That's a great question. What kind of business was he in, right? He was selling, at the time, he was a salesman, engineer salesman, selling these type of radios and solar panels and stuff for Motorola across governments in Middle East, South America. He's got stories, man. That dude is...
Was it really Motorola?
I mean, he had to work for Motorola for sure, but I think he had a side gig.
That might have been a cover.
Yeah, maybe a little cover. I think back in the day, that was more prevalent where you lived a double life. But his stories of being arrested in Zambia, being shot at in Cameroon or wherever he was, hunting, deer hunting in the Philippines or Panama where it was with anacondas. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? The talking to the Russians through a third party in France, right? And when you're in the middle of the Cold War, so they could do different deals. Like, what?
Did you ever question, or maybe better said, did that show you that there's a big world out there, and did that give you some confidence to want to go out and explore? And
no, so when we were in France, so the background with Larry is the fact that he's still living in the U.S. So he was dating my mom for many, for almost 8 years.
Long distance.
And he would do a couple weeks here. I wouldn't see him for a month, right? Because he was always traveling for business. He was gone for months at a time for business. And so when I was about 10 years old, just about 11 years old, actually, I think him and my mom had a conversation where are we taking this relationship? And also, this kid is going to go on the wrong path. And he's got way too much potential. But I think the environment is going to swallow him eventually. And so my dad came into my room and asked me literally 2 questions. Do you like McDonald's? I'll never forget this. I was 11 years old and I was playing Mike Tyson Punch-Out. He said, "Do you like McDonald's?" I said, "Yeah, we're gonna make it easy. Like, let's go." And he's like, "Do you want to meet Michael Jordan?" I said, "What?" "Yeah, right. I'm not even a basketball guy, but Michael Jordan's Michael Jordan." He's like, "Well, if we move to the United States, this is the headquarters. McDonald's is over there, and Michael Jordan is in Chicago, where we'd move." I said, "Let's go." And just like that,
It's time.
just like that, my allegiance to my country, my family, my friends, my sports, everything I've known was sold on McDonald's and Michael Jordan. And he ran with it. So we moved literally a month later. Like, we were gone. They sold our apartment in France, and we moved and we went to Palatine, Illinois. And that's probably one of the biggest moments of my life, because it was a forced change. I was so excited. Right, I was so excited. United States, the land of big yellow buses, right? Literally,
Everything's bigger.
Everything's bigger, and sports and things like that, right? The Michael Jordan, the jerseys, and things that you really in France you idolize. You don't even know why, but you just do. It's the United States. All the movies and TV shows, right? And so I got to move there. He took me there, and that's when I knew, well, hold on, like, I'm going to live with this guy every day. And I was so excited because I absolutely just adored him, right?
What do you remember most? You land, right? Your wheels down, America.
Shit, man. I think probably how spaced out everything was. Lack of people.
Yeah.
Big cars are huge.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we got little compact cars. When we say compact in Europe, it's compact.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. Sardine can size.
And when I moved to Palatine, just outside, outskirts of Chicago, and here I knew no one, didn't speak the language, and it was just a confusing environment, but it was exciting.
Do you remember sort of, well, let me just say it this way. You to me, discovered at some point that you were going to push back against bad people,
Yeah,
or against evil, or kind of stand for something bigger than yourself. Where do you think that came from?
Oh, I know exactly where it came from. I was 12 years old, February 6, 1996, when my uncle was killed by a terrorist organization called a GIA, predecessor to Al-Qaeda in North Africa, in Algeria. My mom's side is Algerian, French Algerian, and so he was living in Algeria. He was actually a preacher of the Muslim faith. He was an imam at the age of 22, pretty young for that. This kid grew up with the Quran in his hands and just a real believer. And he was one of my favorite people in the world. I mean, literally, my mom, dad, and him. And maybe he might have been competing right at the top spot. The nicest person. Like, since I was since I was born, he just embraced me, and I was sort of attracted to him in the sense of, like, I always wanted to be around him. Right? That was my guy. Very annoying little kid. Like, everywhere Abdul went, I wanted to be next to him. Yeah. And so when the GIA came in the late 1980s, early 1990s, really late 1980s, to Algeria, which was a westernized North African Muslim country, meaning that if people wanted to smoke cigarettes and drink alcohol, they could smoke cigarettes. No one judged them. Women wanted to wear miniskirts and go clubbing. No one judged them. And they came in, wanted to bring Sharia law, took over the government. They said they went into the election and created it made it to a sham and said they won. So eventually the military said no, and that created this war in the country. And so my uncle decided to join the army and special operations specifically, and actually get to go to Fort Bragg and train, and did a training stint with some of our special operators. Wow. And fought them for 7 years. And then on February 6, 1996, in a moment where they had to observe, observing Ramadan. It was a ceasefire anyway, for that period of time. I think almost 24, 48 hours. During that ceasefire, as they were maneuvering from one base to the next to go pray, they were ambushed by the enemy. And they killed my uncle. They shot him. He was, luckily for us, the story that they told us anyway, that he was shot through the heart. So he died right away. But they took his body and they beheaded him, and they dismembered him. They put him in a box and they sent him to my grandfather. And the reason why they sent it to my grandfather is because my grandfather is a war hero in Algeria. He was a prisoner of war in the French Indochine for 3 years. So the French Vietnam. And then when he came back to Algeria, he was one of the catalysts to the Algerian independence against the French.
Okay.
So he fought against the French for a while. And he was very well known, very well respected. So when these terrorists killed his son, they thought that by sending his body to him, that it would, terrorize us. Yeah. Instead, it made more of his sons go into the army.
Galvanized.
One of them, 16 years old, that wanted to just, avenge his brother and Sofiane. Wow. And so he faked his age and all that stuff and joined, but everyone knew who he was. So that day changed my life. Yeah. Remember I told you it's very specific moments. When you're 6 years old, you find out like, oh, your mom's your aunt, whatever, and Santa doesn't exist. And then you're 12 years old. It's actually, now that I thought, it's the first time I've thought about it. It's every 6 years. Wow, I never thought about it. Because I was 12 years old, and then my uncle gets killed. And my dad tells me, this is what I love about my dad. He's a very direct man. He's like, yeah, they killed your uncle. I'm like, what happened? And they told me what happened. I'm like, wow, you could have just skipped that freaking part.
Well, it's the same guy that sent you to the pool, wouldn't walk you there.
Yeah, well, it's just like, old school. I mean, he's,
I appreciate that. Though.
Well, Larry's old, man. He's 85 years old. He grew up in Gary, Indiana. Like, he's old school mentality. But so when he told me that, at that point, I just knew that I was going to do something about it. I just didn't know. You're too young. You're just angry. You have all this anger inside of you. But it played such a massive role in my foundation of who I was going to become.
Did you like being the underdog and then going out and showing up and being like, throwing down, surprising people?
I think, probably. Well, in track, it was only my really sophomore year when no one knew. And I didn't know anything about me in terms of running. Mm-hmm. But I never looked at it that way, to be honest with you. I always looked at it.
Was it a chip on the shoulder thing, really?
No, actually, track was like really interesting because I became cocky in track, and there's a huge lesson from Coach Martin and Coach Dunstan that changed sort of the course of my athletic career.
They coached you in high school?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What was the lesson?
I wasn't fast, but Walter Johnson High School in Bethesda, Maryland, I was part of the track team. I just started running track. And I hated it. Absolutely hated it. Mm-hmm. My mom forced me to run track. It was after soccer season. She's like, go do something, run track. And I couldn't play. I got cut from the basketball team because I was afraid to shoot.
Wasn't a ball sport guy?
No, I play basketball every day, with my friends. But then when I got to try out for JV of all things, I wanted to just play defense and pass the ball, but I could not shoot. I was so small. I was 5'1", man, 95 pounds. Anyway. Yeah. So they told me that I was fast and I should run track. And so I went and joined track, and I hated it. I thought it was the dumbest sport in the world. Yeah. Like running around on this oval track, like it's just and being in pain. It's cold outside. Yeah. It's raining. Like what hell is this? Yeah. So one of the things that I would do is I would just barely practice. So one of the stories that changed my life, in essence, in sports was I would run these workouts and let's say we do eight intervals, and I would run the first one and then walk all the way back to school for a cup of water, right? And then walk all the way back. By the time I came back, I skipped like 80% of the workout. And my coaches were these type of dudes where if you want to be here, we don't care. Like, you can still practice, like, but we just won't take you to track meets. Yeah. But I was pretty good at it, and I ran an indoor track season, and I was like a 5:15 miler, whatever. And outdoor track, I think I ran like a 5:12. Okay. And then there's this meet called Sherwood Invitational. I'll never forget this. The coach says, all right, we can only take 3 individuals in each event. So the top 3 times. Yep. And then we have 1 alternate. And so they called out the mile, and I was the number 2, right? And they said, they called out, I think, Varney, and then they said Sean Graves and someone else, and they didn't say my name. So at that point, I'm like, whoa, hold your horses, folks. Like, are you serious? So I figured out I made a mistake. So I went to the coach. I said, Coach, I said, hey, I'm faster than Sean. Like straight up, he's right next to me. Like, I'm faster than him, so I should be going, not him. And he looks at me, he said, no, you're not. I said, yeah, I ran 5:12. He's run 5:13. He's like, oh, Flo, I didn't know you were tracking that. I said, yeah, well, that's a principle thing, so I think you need to change the order I need to run. He said, no, we're not going to do that. So why? He's like, Flo, why do you want to go to that meet? I was like, it's a principle. I've ran faster, and you said top 3 times. He's like, yeah, that's true. I did say that, but you skip all the workouts. You don't want to be here. You definitely don't like this sport. And Sean's here every day, working really hard on this team. And so, yeah, I'm not going to change it. Yeah, we made a mistake, but I'm not going to change it. He's like, but we'll put you on the alternate list, and something happens during the meet, and there's an extra spot, we'll put you in there. I was livid.
Yeah.
Couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
So we get to the meets. And of course, there's an open spot. This was all planned. And so at that point, I'm not talking to anyone. I'm not talking to Sean. That was one of my best friends, by the way, too.
Yeah.
Totally worst friend ever, right? I'm like, screw you, dude. It's my time. And we get there, and I'm like, I'm not talking to anyone. I'm so angry. I said, I'm going to show them. I'm going to show them all. And I lined up, and I asked Sean, I said, who's the fastest guy here? And he's like, Robbie Stressa from Paint Branch High School, 6'2", Native American guy with the amazing necklace that he had, and he freaked me out because right before the race, he like does like war cry.
Yes.
I was like, what the, and like the gun goes, I'm like right behind everybody. But I figured in my head, I was like, I'm just gonna stick behind this guy, and then we'll go. So ran that race and end up second behind Robbie. He beat me at the line, and I ran a 4:31. I went from 5:12 to 4:31. Right. I went from no one knows who I am running JV to like, who is this kid out of nowhere, right? Mm-hmm. Like everyone. And then I like walked off the track as if I'd accomplished, the greatest thing ever. And my coach walked by me. Didn't say congratulations, didn't say anything. And I remember being like, I'm chasing him down. I said, hey, I told you. And he's like, oh, what'd you do? I was like, I ran 4:31. I'm by far the fastest guy on the team. And he said, oh, congratulations. But I don't care. And I remember thinking, he's like, Flo, you could be an Olympian, and I still wouldn't have you on my team. He's like, I don't need that attitude. He's like, your attitude, you're not a good teammate, which doesn't make you a really good person on this team. And I'd rather have the slowest person in the world that shows up every day, gives it 110%, is committed to the team, dedicated to his teammates, doesn't throw them under the bus, and I will put them in that race 10 times out of 10 over you. And he broke me. Because at that point, it was just like, I was 15 years old, almost, I was a cocky kid. And I remember thinking like, I felt so ashamed of myself. All my anger and cockiness was just destroyed because he said it in such a gentle way. That was Coach Martin, yeah. He said it in such a gentle way. And I just felt like, wow, I disappointed him. And I was really kind of an asshole to my teammate. And this whole achievement that I had, massive achievement that put my name out there, was for nothing. Yeah. And so it changed me. And I showed up every day at practice now. I ran every single interval. I just kept my mouth shut. I was a better teammate. Yeah. And I did, I went over 110%. And it took like 6-7 months before the coach like really looked at me and said, kind of took me in and he said, hey, at the end of the season, I'm giving you a sportsmanship award. Not MVP, now it's a sportsmanship award. And I thought that was the greatest achievement that I ever won in my life because at that point I felt like, wow, I'm a good teammate. Yeah. And I won the MVP the next 2 years on the team. I should have been MVP that year, but it was like, you didn't earn it, MVP. You definitely were not the most valuable guy. But that lesson about doing the right thing when no one's watching, about never skipping, never taking, cutting corners, skipping things, having the integrity, but also the mindset of being a teammate and the importance of being a teammate and how you're viewed, but really how you earn that view, changed my life. Yeah. There are very, very specific pivotal moments. So you were talking about this now, 6 years. So here I am, 18 years old. I'd just been naturalized as a U.S. citizen in 2001, February 2001. So here I am now, an American, and I'm super proud of that, right? Mm-hmm. And I am a freshman in college, just got there, and 9/11 happens. Wow. And the same type of people that killed my uncle and terrorized my family attack my newly adopted country, killed just under 3,000 people. And I felt so disgusted by that type of evil that I knew at that point, based upon what they've done to my family, that I was, and now being a new citizen, and what they've done to my adopted country, my new country, it was like I knew exactly what I was going to do. Yeah. There's like a almost a weird sense of it's not patriotism at that time, more of I know exactly where I'm, like it didn't matter what I was studying at the time. I was like, I'm going in the military. Yeah. I almost tried to drop out as soon as I was in school, but my father said something that I'll never forget, which is he challenged me in a sense. He's like, what did I ask of you when I gave you my name? And I had no idea what he's talking about. And he said, when I gave you the name Groberg, I told you that when you start something, you finish it. Because the day that you find a reason to quit is the day that you find a reason to quit everything else that is hard in your life. Amen, brother. Whether it's a family, sports, a job. And so it was another hard pill to swallow, right? He's a man of very few words and some really defining lessons in my life. And I remember thinking like, man, I hate you for that because I thought you'd be the most supportive guy. Yeah. You'd be like, let's go together.
Yeah, you're like, I have this duty. And he's saying, hold on. Yeah, your duty is first to finish.
It's just so patriotic, obviously, military background too. And I didn't know at the time, like probably more than likely some secret squirrel stuff he was doing. And
Motorola. Yeah.
And so but I knew when I woke up that next day after 9/11, I knew what I was going to go do in my life. Wow. And so
you were a junior?
I was 18. I was a freshman in college. Yeah.
And that was when it all went down.
Yeah. I was literally coming back from my morning run when everybody was watching this in a little corridor. Yeah. And they couldn't, we just don't understand it. It was crazy.
Do you think running, going back to track at Maryland, do you think running helped you to deal with intentionally go into a state of suffering? Look, the mile is not an easy race, especially when you're running 4-minute miles. I mean, that's crazy. So for you, do you think that benefited you well to get you capable of enduring and a level of endurance, not just in sport, but where the military, once you got it, like ultimately you go into basic and all that, like I got an assumption that what you achieved in college running actually prepared you to be like, this ain't that hard.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was, I thought basic training was a joke, in terms of like the physical piece of it. Going back though, running, and now you understand this because you train, right? Mm-hmm. Running, it was hard. It was painful. The intervals that we did, were absolutely like just destroyed you at times. Mm-hmm. But I didn't feel that way, right? I felt like every day I had a new mission to go, whatever the workout was, but the runs were easy. Yeah. I was running about just under 100 miles a week at the time, and I was a middle distance runner, right? And I was probably running, and every morning get up, run 3 or 4, maybe to 5, and we'd run 6:30 pace. And then whenever we did our long runs, we'd probably run 5:55 to 6-minute pace for like 20 miles, right? You're clocking it, and it was easy. Yeah. It was easy. It was comfortable. You're so used to it, right?
Yeah,
the hard stuff were like fartleks, tempo runs where you're running 5:05, and then you're switching the pace, and you go uphill running and all that stuff. These would kill you, and then you get on the track, you do these different interval mile repeats and stuff. But I never felt like, man, this was painful. What was hard was getting up on Sunday morning when in doing a run on your own after like you're in college, right? You're partying and stuff, and you just had that discipline to go do it. Yeah. And the reason why I did it is because I could not live with myself to miss a day, because I felt that if I missed a day, I let the team down. Yeah. I missed an opportunity to get better.
What was the leadership training, and how realistic was it, or applicable was it when you eventually got into country?
So let's take it back one step though. Something that's super important for me. Yeah. And I love what you said about the whole, the stages in life and decisions. And I always talk about I look back at my life so far, how moments, those key moments you're talking about, like 6 years old, you find out like who your parent, who your biological mom is, and sort of the mental game it plays on you. To my uncle, to 9/11, going back to track, and so what I find super interesting, specifically now being a new dad, is that I'm never going to take for granted the experiences my son has at a very young age, because I know for a fact that will impact the way he makes decisions in ways he doesn't understand 10, 20 years later. Because as we got into my military career, a lot of the reason that I was able to be successful was because of those trials and tribulations that I went through in my life earlier on, those positions where you have to be uncomfortable and find a way through, the thinking process behind those, the applications of getting through those moments, right, sort of gave me that foundation to be successful in the military. And these were things that I would think about going through those times. So one thing that at basic training that really set the stage for my military career is, I was a good athlete, and my platoon was rewarded for that. We won every physical competition. We won all of them, right? And that's just because of Flo, because we had others in there, and I motivated them, they motivated me. But we got more phone calls, more PX runs than anybody else by far, specifically because we just kicked ass. But we worked hard for it. But also, I was the assistant PG, so like leader of my platoon, and let's just say I wasn't really liked at all. Every morning I was fired up when I woke up, whatever time it was, I think 0400, I woke up and I was just like, I never slept in my sheets right. My bed was always made, and I'd get up and I would go, get my stuff ready and tell people, let's go move faster and stuff like that. I annoyed them. Every day I was excited about the next day. I was excited, whatever it was.
And it was real.
And I wasn't excited like, let's go. I was this is important.
Focus.
I didn't get mail. I didn't tell people when the only like people that knew when I was going to basic training was one of my best friends, Matt Sanders, who dropped me off at MEPS, and so right before military medical facility where you do your test and then you leave, and my parents. No one else knew. I didn't want mail. I wanted to be there for 9-10 weeks and be committed to that pace, because I knew I was going to go to war. So I was doing a life change at that moment. Yeah. I was a rookie. I knew nothing about it. And so here I was in basic training, where they tell you, they rewire you, they break you and then reshape you in what they need. So for me to be 100% committed to that shaping, I needed to play the game. And part of that is forget the outside world. 2.5 months, who gives a crap? So I live with that mindset. Let's just say not everybody live with that mindset. Right. So every day was a day closer to becoming a soldier. And I mean, every day was the most important day of my life, because I needed to go and earn it. Dude, the Olympics happened that year. Like, I'm an athlete. Like, this is like, and I was a track athlete. I die for the Olympics. I love the Olympics. The World Cup and the Olympics are my two favorite events. But I was like, out of my mind, out of sight. I don't want to know anything about it. No mail. So people thought I was weird, of course.
Yeah, you made them uncomfortable.
100%.
And they had to look at themselves and question themselves as a result of the effort and the focus and the clarity that you had.
But I wanted to be the best.
Yeah. It was just so there was some ego involved.
No ego. I wanted to be the best, not because I wanted to beat other people. I wanted to be the best because I wanted to be the best prepared, because I knew that I was going to be an officer, and I knew that one day I would have to make decisions that would impact whether or not people came home. So the only way for me to be the right type of individual and leader and officer to make those decisions, I need to be the best. I can't be number 2. Even if I'm number 2, it doesn't matter, right? Or number 12, it really doesn't matter. It's the mindset of I need to be the best, which means that I need to, practice the way and train and practice the way I need to operate. Yeah. And so for me, I took that seriously. And I think it made others uncomfortable. It made others envious. It made others annoyed, probably more annoyed. But where I failed in hindsight was that I expected everyone to operate the way I operate. And so that's when I was a dick, man. Week 7, they're about to vote for Soldier of the Cycle. And so each platoon had to have one representative for Soldier of the Cycle. So we're doing mail call. Of course, I don't get any mail. And it's Staff Sergeant Garcia, and he's like, all right, everybody, here's a piece of paper. You have a pen. I need you to put a name in there for Soldier of the Cycle. And so he, everyone, right, puts in a little bucket, and then he reads them. And he goes, Groberg, somebody else, Groberg, somebody else, Groberg. And he's like, stop. He stops. Like, Groberg, get the hell out of here. He said, so I left the room, and then he asked them. I could hear everything. It's like, I'm right outside. He's like, did Groberg put you up to this? Did he threaten you guys? Because he was confused, because he knew how, I was mean, dude.
You were oppressive, yeah.
And it's like, were people scared? And I'm not the most imposing physical person out there by any means. But
he picked up on this.
And then he picked up. Everyone was like voting for me for Soldier of the Cycle. And so that to me was like, all right, in my head, I said, oh, well, people respect me because even though I'm a dick to them, I work hard. And so it was a false representation of what leadership should look like at the time. And unfortunately, it made me, as we were talking outside, a very different leader that I wish I would have been in the military. Because at that point in my head, I was like, I'm going to be the hardest worker, and I'm going to expect the best out of everyone else, and I'll call you out on it. I'll be a dick. I don't care how you feel about me.
Yeah, because the standard is
the standard is the standard. And it worked in the infantry. It worked in the infantry to a certain point. So I went to OCS, same thing, right? Officer Candidate School. I'm competing now with 160 other individuals for my job.
Sure.
There are X amount of jobs. So in the infantry, right, there's only 10 slots. Mm-hmm. So there's an order of merit list. Mm-hmm. And after 6 weeks of the 13 weeks, your PT scores, your physical scores, your academic scores, and your leadership scores are all aggregated together, and then get by points, and then you are now placed in the order of merit list. Out of 160 plus, I was number 2, and I got to pick infantry. But again, people liked me more there because it was just a little bit so different. It's a little bit more. I wouldn't say mature, but it's become an officer versus going in.
They were cut from a different cloth, right?
Right, and then you had prior enlisted folks in there who've done it, who've deployed, who call you out. So Flo wasn't the guy that woke up every day motivated and then expected anybody. Literally, I would sit there and listen to stories of guys that just get deployed and came back from Iraq, and I'm like, whoa, I have so much to learn from you. Yes. But I was the best athlete there still. Right. And I was hungry and stuff. So when I got to pick infantry, I called my dad and I said, Dad, I got it, man. I got infantry. He said, oh, you got Ranger School. I said, no. What are you talking about? I got infantry. He's like, no, you got Ranger School. I didn't understand at that point. I was like, sure, whatever, dude. And so I went through the rest of my training. In terms of how realistic it was, none of my training that I've done, even Ranger School, replicated Afghanistan. The whole point, though, in leadership training is to give you the baselines, the foundation, the basis, and really the applications on how to make effective decisions with speed and scale, but with the best possible and data points you have that makes sense for those groups, right? Yep. And then how to really lead by example. What I wish the military taught in terms of leadership is how to be a leader. How do I look into in his or her eyes and make them believe in what I'm about to say so that they follow me without any doubts, right? They teach you how to read a map, how to brief an operations order. They teach you all the basics of how to be a good officer. But they call it the basic officer leadership school. Yeah. And they look at leadership as in you're good at your job.
Right. Tactical, technical.
That's it. Literally it. They don't teach you how to actually lead individuals because they expect the military to do by itself. So I went to these schools, wanted to be the best and learn, the best that I could.
As you then went on, right, Ranger School, ultimately going into being deployed.
Yeah.
You being very green, as you said, I saw it as I was researching it. It was like, I had just finished, and 6 months later, I'm deployed to Afghanistan.
No,
not even 6 months.
No, I was 6 weeks later.
Okay, so you started basic in 2008, Ranger School.
Oh, yeah.
2009, you end up. So that's 2008 was when you started everything.
Yeah.
But by 2009, early 2009, you're in Afghanistan.
Yeah. So I started in July of 2008, and then in November of 2009, I'm in Afghanistan.
Yeah. So you then you're dropped into this, and you got to lead men now.
Yeah.
Right now. What did you say? Like, what was the dynamic there as somebody that hadn't had any combat experience, but you're supposed to lead? You're supposed to be the one directing right and left. Yeah. How did you approach that responsibility? And back to the leadership lessons that you've already told us, right? Not both from sport and track and high school, ultimately then now, like even with the, the ND, like, what was that? What was that for you to come into a country and be like, all right, I'm supposed to be the guy, but I don't know shit.
Oh, man, it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I don't think I'll ever do anything hard in my life. So we talk about like you always have things to do and like you close a chapter. I know for a fact that that there's nothing in my path going forward. I believe, maybe I'm wrong, that's going to be harder than that specific moment in my life when I arrive in Afghanistan and I'm told by my boss I'm taking over Dagger 4th Platoon at a combat outpost Hanukkah Miracle, and I'll be leading 24 individuals, and that their lives were in my hands, and now I had the responsibility to make the right decision as an officer. And like you said, I was green. Green means I had no experience. I never been shot at, right? I've never been on patrol, in combat, in real life setting. I've just been trained. And I remember thinking, after I had that conversation with the boss, like I walked out of the room for the first time in my life, I was completely petrified. And that imposter syndrome was like at, DEFCON 12, right? I was thinking I was so ready for this training and all that stuff. And I worked my butt off, but I never took the time to truly appreciate what I was learning. So I felt like I was almost cramming for a test just to take the test, and then you forget everything after that. That's how I felt in that moment. That's how I felt unprepared, totally lost, confidence gone, because now I had this was real. Like, this was real. This is no longer an idea, a game, a practice, a training scenario. This is lives are at stake, and I need to be at it. And so,
what'd you do?
Oh, I called my dad. Because I knew.
What did Larry have for you?
Told me to shut up and never call me that bullshit again. He said, go find the most senior experienced guy in your platoon, ask him, tell me you're green, and tell him that you need help and guidance, and then and to go do my job. Like, shut up and go do your job. He hung up on me. And I was like, wow, that's not what I expected out of that conversation. Thanks for making me feel even better. But he's right. I remember thinking like that night, I was like, okay, I do. Like, luckily for me, I have an entire platoon of individuals who have been there over 3 months, right? So I got there in the middle of the deployment and who have a ton of experience. Yeah. So the question was, how do I actually lead individuals with no background? Well, how are they going to take me seriously? How are they going to trust me? How am I going to trust myself? And how are they going to believe in me? And I remember thinking, I'm just going to be honest. That's it. I'll be transparent and honest.
Is there fear of that vulnerability being seen?
Oh, yeah. But 100%. I didn't know what it was. I mean, I was hoping in this case, right? Yeah. I didn't know what to do except be honest and transparent and being vulnerable. And so when I got to my platoon the next day, and this is when reality sets in. Like, it's a remote combat outpost, right? You're in the middle of Afghanistan, and it's like you got barbed wire and barricades, and there you are, 90 soldiers and a bunch of Afghans, and this is it. And I had that conversation with my platoon sergeant, my number 2, Sergeant First Class Corey Staley. The first thing I said to him when I introduced myself was, "Hi, my name is Lieutenant Groberg." And his first response, this is the first conversation I ever had with this guy. He goes, "I can read your name tag." I was like, awesome. First impression, great.
He's at this point had been in country, had experience for how long?
Oh, he was probably 13 years in the Army. Oh. This was his 4th tour, or third tour.
Okay.
2 in Iraq, first one in Afghanistan. He'd been in country 3+ months.
He can smell the green on you.
Oh, he's had this conversation multiple times. He's just like, I'm just another one of those lieutenants.
What did he tell you though?
I said, well, I can read your name tag. I said, yeah, roger that. Gotcha. I said, listen, here's the situation. Obviously, I'm taking over this platoon, but I'm green as it gets. So I'm coming here man to man, and I'm taking my pride, my ego, and my rank, and I'm putting them to the side. And I'm literally asking you for help, guidance, and mentorship. I'm going to lead this platoon. I will put those plans together. I will make decisions, but I can't do them alone. And I can't do it without your help. You have way more experience than I'll probably ever have my entire career. And from my understanding, the guys trust you. And so for me, this is an opportunity for me to learn just as much as I'll ever possibly, teach anyone from you. I need your help. And he looked at me, he was really confused, and he said, all right, well, for the next 7 days, he's like, sir, for the next 7 days, just shut up, don't talk, watch and listen. We're gonna go out on patrol, watch the way we react, watch the way we react to contact, we're gonna get hit. Listen to the way we communicate internally when we get hit and the way we communicate back to base. Then I recommend that you go read all the historical battles we've had here from the previous lieutenant, because after every firefight, he writes a, after action report. And then we're going to go to these different villages. We'll introduce you to leadership. Your job is to build relationships with these folks, right? He's like, you give me 7 days, sir, I'll give you a platoon ready for your leadership. And he started walking away. And I said, well, one more thing. I said, first of all, I can't not talk for 7 days, right? I hear you. I won't make any plans on stuff and I'll listen to things. But if I don't talk for 7 days, the boys are just going to look at me as weak anyway. So we're going to tell them this plan. He's like, what? I was like, yeah, I'd rather everything we just discussed and we agreed upon, we're going to brief it tonight. And he said, and that was like my first leadership moment with him. Yeah. Right? I'm like, this is, and he said, okay. He said, okay, you make your own bed. And I knew like this was a risk. Right. And so that night I told all the soldiers, I said, introduce myself, give my background. And I told them, I was like, asked, like, who's the private here? Raise your hand. Who's 18 years old? There was none. One was 19. You're 19 years old. I said, you have a hell of a lot more experience than I do. I said, I have so much more to learn from you than you do from me today. But my job is to be the platoon leader of this team. And so for me to be the most effective platoon leader is I need to figure out how you operate. I am not here to come in and bring my own methodology on how we should be operating here. I'm here to make sure that the train stays on the tracks. And if things are operating the right way, I'm going to be out there. I'm along for the ride. My job is to do X, Y, and Z. But I will make sure to learn this just as much as I can from each and every one of you, because we all have the same responsibility, which is serve our country and serve each other. Yeah. And not a single one of us has a more important job. We're all pieces of the puzzle. So for me to be the right piece of that puzzle, I need to learn from you. So over the course of the next 7 days, this is what we're going to do. And I think Staley was like shocked by that. He's like, oh, okay. The way you present it to him was like, how are you going to present this? Yeah. And I think those guys, right, yeah, did they fuck with me for the first couple of weeks? Absolutely. But I think for them it was like, whoa, I've never heard this from a young lieutenant. And to me, that was the only way to operate. Like, I really don't know anything.
Well, that's just fascinating, because just a little bit ago you said, like, hey, they give you all the technical and tactical training, but they don't really equip you for this part of the conversation. And it's cool that you called Larry. Larry, at some level, kind of tells you, like...
He told me what to do.
Well,
he gave me the answer to the test, but not how to do it.
Right, that's what I mean. Yeah. But yet, then you just come and you're just honest, earnest, and with great... I think, again, like, to follow a great leader, you have to believe that person is there leading with, like, from the front. And that's what you were saying. Like, hey, I'm not even ready to be up front right now because I need to learn from you guys who have experience. There's humility in that, right? And then there is an ego. Like the fact that like no one person's greater than the other, that to me is a mentality that is great leadership. That's a piece of people want to show up for their own why inside of the larger why of the unit. Yeah. So perhaps, right, all of the things going back to high school and track and all those, the amalgamation allowed you to make that decision in that moment, even though to you it seemed like a huge roll of the dice.
Yeah. I mean, it was absolutely. It goes back to what we were talking about. Those moments that you have, maybe at 6 years old, 12 years old, 18 years old, they play a very specific role, right, in how you process things and make sense of it, right? It's so, to me, honesty, transparency was super important in this case because that's all I can bring to the table.
Yeah. Let's jump into the intuition. So August 8th, 2012, was anything different? Was there spidey senses?
Yeah. So that year I was running my second tour, I was running a specialized security detail for at the time, Colonel Mingus, who is now going to be the Vice Chief of Staff of the Army.
Yeah, it's your guy.
And my guy. Like, he's like a father figure, a brother. You know, he's kind of a mix, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, Dad,
Yeah.
homie. No, homie, sir. Right? But it was cool because all we did that tour is I planned all his routes and all his movements and all his helicopters, you know, movements. And then I ran his security underground. It was like a Secret Service type of thing.
Yep.
And I had 6 other awesome guys that I got to handpick out of 3,000 or 4,000 in a brigade.
Amazing.
And we just did this for the tour. And I got to see Afghanistan. Like, I flew in helicopters every day. Flew cool.
Yeah.
And then I got to see Afghanistan from a very different perspective. So on August 8, 2012, 6 months into our tour,
weren't you supposed to be promoted? Did I read that? You were supposed to be promoted the same day.
I'll tell you all about this. Yeah. August 8, 2012. Forget it. August 7, 2012. There's a really key decision here. August 7, 2012, I woke up and I was tired. And I said, I'm not going to go for a run that day. Every morning, I usually would go for a run. And it's hot over there, so you get up early and you go for a run. And I said, I took the day off. I was brushing my teeth. I'll never get this. I was brushing my teeth. I was like, I'm not running tomorrow because we're going to get up early. I was like, I don't want to run today. Like, whatever. I'll run. I think it was Wednesday. I was like, I'll run on Thursday. And it's really significant because that would have been the last time I was capable of running with my leg, my normal leg.
Yeah.
And I skipped that day. And as a runner, as part of my identity, that laziness that I had that morning, there was zero reason for me not to run, by the way. Not a single reason.
Just tired.
Just didn't want to.
Yeah.
Just said, skip it. Drink some coffee. That was one of the first thoughts I had in the hospital later on. It's like, they told me I would never be able to run again. I remember thinking, like, I skipped that. And that was it's my meditation, therapy, it's my everything. You know this now, like, you're in this, my old world, like, except a little bit more extreme, you're crazy. But here we are, August 8th, and I wake up that morning. I go do my standard process, which is, go to the Tactical Operations Center, get any enemy intel, I get weather, all that stuff, make sure everything's squared away, make sure that aircrafts are good to go, no changes. Then I check my list of the people I'm bringing in, go to my radios, make sure all the freaks are good to go, right? We've changed them if we need to change. I'll talk to my commo guy. And then I go get breakfast real quick. And I come back and put my gear on and walk to the aircraft. The night before, the boss had all his leaders in for a big meeting, right? Leadership meeting.
A lot
of brass. And so he said to me, he changed my list of people. And he said, we're going to bring in these extra colonels, and we're going to bring an Afghan general tomorrow. We're going to give him a ride. And we're going to go to the Kunar Provincial Security Meeting, like we were always playing, but they're all coming. They want to listen in. I said, okay, roger that. So I called the base that we're landing our aircrafts on. What that base was supposed to do is, as soon as we land, they were supposed to give me 15 U.S. soldiers to accompany us to the meeting. Yeah. So every time you left the wire, your base, or any military base, and you're now in Afghan land, you need an escort, right? I had my 6 security for the boss and the command sergeant major, and then I needed 15 to 20 other soldiers for outer cordon to protect us. The game was, we get hit, I collapsed on the principles. Literally, like, we would put them on the ground, you cover them with your body, they fight the threat, and then we exfil away from the threat. Right? We're not designed to be an actual attack element. We're a protective element. So I called the base, and it was this major, and he was one of those support dudes that showed up from 101st to train Afghans, National Army, on how to operate. So I call this guy, and I'm telling him who I'm bringing, what time I'm leaving, and we're going to go to his combat outpost, or FOF-IS, Forward Operating Base. Yep. And I said, all right, well, I'm going to need 15 of your soldiers to escort us. And he says to me, yeah, I'm going to walk the route 15 minutes prior. I'll clear it with those soldiers. I can't give you anybody. I'm thinking, like, is what? So I put him on mute. I have the boss's adjutant next to me, Lieutenant Caston. I'm like, look, I'm going to repeat my request. You're my witness. Now, if he's going to tell me to screw off and but like you're my witness. No matter what happens, you're my witness. So I unmute this guy and I put him on speaker. And I said, hey, sir, I'm going to repeat my request. And just to let you know, your boss's boss is coming. Like, you might want to be there. And he tells me, don't you fucking take your, he's like, take your fucking lieutenant rank and keep it to yourself. Don't take your boss's rank. I'm fucking walking around. He's like cursing at me on stuff. And he hung up on me. I was like, all right, well, this guy's probably having a bad day. He's probably going to go to sleep tonight and realize my boss and my boss's boss is coming. I might want to be there, and I might want to have a nice uniform, and then I might want to walk them and then have a conversation about like status of the area, as we're, before we go to the security meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's there's no more no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
And so when we landed, he was gone. He took all the soldiers with him.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I mean, 6 months doing this every day. I had never seen that.
Do you think he walked the area?
He walked it.
He did.
100%. But he broke the rule number one. The only rule that you have, the number one rule, when you clear a route and you leave the route, it is no longer clear.
Yeah.
So if he would have actually cleared it and then secured it by putting soldiers there, that it still would have been the wrong decision, but that probably would have been better.
Yeah, peace out.
So when we landed, I'll never forget this. Talk about spidey senses, and I saw no one receiving us. And I was like, oh, this guy did not do that. So immediately I just jump out of the aircraft, like it's still like 5 feet. And I'm just like, I'm out. And I'm running. And I see no one. And my platoon sergeant, Brink, follows me in, and he's like, what the fuck, sir? And I look at him like, dude, I think this asshole literally like took off with the soldiers. And he's like, what? He's like, what do you want to do? So this is where the military comes in, right? And this happens all the time. Why I think the military is the most amazing organization in the world is because it forces you to make incredible, difficult decisions on the spot with confidence and complete guess sometimes.
Yeah.
But you need to have confidence. You need to make decisions. There's no other organization that forces you to make decisions. And the impact of decisions more than likely means people go home alone. And so that moment, he's looking at me, and the idea is, you're the boss, you're the officer, and you need to make a decision on like, what do we do? And I also knew that as soon as those bosses got off the aircraft, which was at that exact moment, they expect you to have everything set up. So they start walking towards the gate because they're going to their meeting. And now I have 2 brigade commanders, 2 battalion commanders, an Afghan general, 2 GS-15 State Department guys, some pretty high up folks, USAID guy, command sergeant major. I have an incredibly, impressive group of leaders. And I don't have any security other than my 5 other guys in me. So I told him, he's asked me this question, and I'm scanning. I'm trying to figure out like, what is the answer, right? And immediately I see all these Afghan National Army soldiers smoking cigarettes by the gate. So I was like, go get the translator. Tell him that all these assholes are coming with us, and I want you to organize them and put them up front.
You needed bodies.
I need bodies.
Yeah.
And he's like, in the meantime, I'm going to sprint, and I'm going to go to 3 different places where I'm going to try to find soldiers. So I went to the hooch where they're asleep, and I found one. And Sergeant O'Brien, he used to work for me. I woke him up, and I was like, get your gear on. You have 3 minutes. Get your shit on. You come with me. I went to the chow hall. I found no one. And I went to the gym, right? The other place I guess I didn't think of was a shitters, right? But, and I went to the gym, and I found this contractor. I was like, you're American? He's like, yeah. I was like, you have a weapon? He's like, yeah. I was like, you're coming with us. I didn't know who he was. To this day, I have no idea who this guy is. Definitely not a soldier, but whatever. He came with us. And then I put O'Brien to the right, and I put this guy to the rear. And then I put the Afghan National Army guys up front, and I put them in a position to appear bigger. My whole thinking process at that moment is, I don't have soldiers, so I need bodies, and I need to appear bigger. There is a threat out there. If they see a lot of people, they're more than likely not going to want to engage. Yeah. And then after that, I told the boss, I was like, sir, we have a situation where our escort's not here. Here's the game plan. I need to change who gets put in diamond. So the way we operated was, I would always put the boss, the colonel, and the command sergeant major in diamond, and I would have a person at the spear, right? And that was usually an E3, and I would have my radio guy on the left, I would have my medic on the right, and I would have me in the back. And the reason I was in the back is in case something happened, I wanted to be the first one to grab the boss and put him to the ground. In this case, I wanted to have better eyes on the situation because all my spidey senses kicked up. I was like, something bad's gonna happen.
So it was probably a little bit of awareness from training, but also just like sensory.
A combat experience.
Was it sight? Was it sound? Was it smell? Was there?
I had that sense. It was probably fear of not having what you're supposed to have and understanding that there's always a threat out there.
Right.
But there's just something in the air sometimes.
I mean, because you're briefed on suicide bombers and on IEDs and on things like that's a normal common.
Yeah, but I've never seen a suicide bomber in my life before.
Okay.
Right.
So even
they're
like talked about.
They're very few and rare. I felt, you know what I mean? It had happened, but you know, it's IEDs all the time and all that stuff. But suicide bombers, I really wasn't worried about suicide bomb for some reason. I was more worried about like an ambush, a V-bid. I guess that's a bomber, a suicide bomber, a V-bid. But at that point, my senses are kicking in. It's just telling me something's wrong. Like, I don't know what it is, but I don't like it. So I took PFCO chart, one of my privates, who was always, I put him in the front, I put him in my position in the rear. And I told him, anything happens, whatever direction I go, I need you to grab the boss and go the opposite direction. Roger that? Say roger that. Okay, cool. And I wanted to put myself at the front now because I wanted better eyes on. Yeah. Now, I had too many officers and important people to put in indictment. Like there's 4 of us. Like literally, like at a certain point, it doesn't matter. Yeah. So I said, okay, Colonel Mingus, Colonel Walraff, I need to put you in here. Command Sergeant Griffin. He looked at me. He's like, fuck no, Groberg, I'm not going in there. He's like, put all the officers in there. Like, I'm in the back. He's like, I have more combat experience than anyone here. He's like, I'm a rifleman. I'm going to be in the back. I got rear security. He's like, we don't have enough fucking security for this. I was like, yeah, no, thank you, Sergeant Major. I appreciate you, dude. Don't say that too loud, right? And so he's like, I got the rear. And at that point, I felt, I have a war fighter that's got my covers my rear. I feel really good about that. I put my platoon sergeant and the Sergeant Major's main security guy up front, in front of us to control our pace, in between the Afghan National Army. And I told them, if any one of these assholes turns around and points his weapon at us, pop him. Yeah. Because we had too many green on blues where those guys who were supposed to be friendlies shoot us. And we went. And atmospherics were quite, a little bit normal, and then it got really quiet. Like I was like, no kids, no one walking around. It's non-characteristic. So, my spidey senses are now like, whoo, whoo. And 700 meters into our movement is when we saw this out of nowhere. There's a road. We're on a road. We're about to cross a bridge. As soon as we cross this bridge, there's a set of stairs that we're going to take that takes us up this, towards the governor's compound. But the road continues and curves, right? And it goes uphill, so you can't really see it. So it cuts off at a certain point, a certain angle. And then we hear like motorcycles coming and then like fast, right? Going down around that curve towards us. And everyone's like focused on motorcycles. Luckily, the Afghan National Army point guy did a hell of a good job. Okay. He immediately saw this as a threat and just got stopped. So he forced us all stop and then raised his rifle and started screaming and darting, which like forced like the bike to fall. Like literally they fell. Those 2 motorcycles like tumbled. And then those guys got up and started sprinting. So like we're looking like, what in the hell was going on?
So did you think that the guys on the bikes were the ambush?
Yeah. Oh, at that point I knew we were in trouble.
Okay.
I've been around too long. I was like, this is not good. I just didn't know where the trouble was coming from.
Okay, got it.
Because we were like, is that the trouble? And like we got lucky.
It was just distraction.
So it was a distraction, and it worked perfectly for them. What saved probably my life and a lot of people's life is Brink, my number 2. Mm-hmm. And I put up front, he turned around, right, to look at me, to be like, are you tracking what's going on? And as he turned around, he stopped and never made eye contact with me and stared to my left. And I was looking in his eyes, right? Thank God that dude had clear eye pro, he had clear, I could see his eyes because I have dark ones, right? And, and it forced me to look to my left. And that's when I saw this guy, like, must have come out of a structure, like a little hut building thing. And he's walking backwards parallel to us. And I was like, you were not there like 10 seconds ago, 15 seconds ago. Who are you? And he's about 30 feet from us, maybe 40 feet. He's close. And at that point, I switched my body stance to look directly at him. My radio guy, Mahoney, right, who's to my left, does the same thing. And then this guy does a 180-degree turn and 90-degree turn, and then boom, started walking towards us. So immediately I ran towards him, and I'm screaming at this guy.
So in this moment, right then, what are you thinking?
Thinking like, what the fuck is he doing?
Yeah,
I was like, that's a threat. I can't see. I'm scanning for weapons.
Why didn't you pop him?
No weapons.
Got it.
What if he was mentally challenged and he didn't know what the hell he was doing, and I killed a civilian in front of all these leaders? I'm done. I'm going to fucking Leavenworth, right? I can't see a weapon, so I can't, there's not a positive identification that this is an actual real threat. So at that point, what I'm thinking in my head is like, I need to do my own escalation of force. So I need to close on that threat and assess it. Yep. So I'm running towards him and I'm screaming at him. I'm saying, you motherfucker, what are you fucking doing? And he's walking, and then I saw his eyes. And that's when I knew this is not good. And it made me go faster towards him because his eyes, man, it was like he was definitely drugged up. Had to be. No reaction, didn't care anything I was saying, never looked at me, always looking past me towards the boss. And you could see the fear and the dedication, like fear and dedication, I don't know, in there. And so I ran towards him, and as soon as I got to him, I just hit him with my rifle. When I hit him with my rifle, he still didn't look at me because I'm staring at him. Right? I'm like, and so I let go of my rifle and I grabbed him. And that's when I grabbed him, I was like, fuck. And I said, I knew it was a suicide vest. And I was like, bomb, 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 bomb. And at that point, all I could think about was like, I got to get him away from these guys as quickly as possible, as far away as possible.
Now.
So I wasn't thinking about dying and stuff. I was thinking like, he's going to kill my friends. And so like, I'm taking him with me, and I took him and I threw him to the ground. And Mahoney followed me, my RTO guy, and he's trying to, finish him down on the ground, and he landed chest first. And as soon as he landed, I saw something come out of his hand, and everything went black. And that's when he detonated.
So the trigger was in his hand.
He had a demonstrator the whole time. Couldn't see it because you had his man jams, like his outfit, and it was kind of like they're kind of over. So kind of find out, my number two, the reason why he was staring at him, he had a better angle. He said he saw a fake hand. So the reason I couldn't see it, it's like apparently it was a fake hand with a dead man. I don't, and he was about to shoot him. He's like, I was about to shoot him, but you walked in front of my line of sight so fast because you were on him like so quick. So when I threw him, he detonated. He threw me 30 feet. I flew, and I woke up a couple of minutes later. I'll never forget it. I forgot for a while, but it comes back to you a little bit. When I woke up, I remember being propped up, like I was laying down, I was propped up, and I saw this foot facing me, and I saw my fibula out, right, sticking out.
Fully exposed.
Oh, yeah. It was just like, and I remember looking, and I took my helmet off because my head was spinning, and I had a loose helmet, so I just took the strap off, and I threw my helmet, and it took me a couple seconds to come back to it, and I was trying to figure out, whoa, what? Is this real world? Am I dreaming? This is, and I looked at my leg, and dude, I complain about a paper cut. So when I see my foot facing me, and I see this, I was like, this is not good.
Pain?
No pain.
Just adrenaline.
Absolutely complete shock. No pain at all.
Ears ringing?
Oh, absolutely. My head just...
like a movie.
It's like a movie, right? It's just it's slow and fast. It's just you're in a daze, but you're there. So at that point, the first thing that came to my head was I must have stepped in an IED. I can't remember exactly what happened. I must have an IED. Assess myself real quick, but I'm probably going to be ambushed, right? It's probably an ambush. Yeah. So immediately I assessed myself for other, wounds. So I looked at my hands. I was like, okay, the other leg's fine. I had blood all over me. I was like, oh my God. So I checked myself. And it's not I was like, okay, it's not my blood. And I had pieces of human beings, whatever, bones and stuff. I was like, all right, whatever happened, happened. Then next, I was like, I need to find, where's my weapon? Couldn't find my weapon. So I took my pistol, make sure I round and chamber, I started dragging myself out. And that's when my number 2 showed up, Brink. He grabbed me by the handle of my plate carrier and dragged me into a ditch, put me in a ditch. And then my medic, saved my life. He applied a tourniquet on my leg, kept me awake, with the help of my translator.
Yeah, your terp was a big deal to you, right?
Oh yeah, man, dude, he had a severe concussion and some injuries, and he was over here like, terrified and traumatized. But he's working on with a medic to help me, and getting yelled at, of course, because the medic's like, bastard, open up this thing, and this guy's like, No, I'm normal now at that point, and so I'm asking for water, and my medic's like, no water. And I was like, oh, fuck, give me some water. He's like, no water. You're gonna go in surgery, no water. So then I was like, what's the status? What happened? What's the status of Mountain Warrior 6? What's the status of the Colonel? What's the status of Mountain Warrior 7? What's the status of Commander Sergeant? They said Mountain Warrior 6 is fine. You know why he's fine? Because that kid that I told you about, as soon as he saw me move towards that bomber, he grabbed the boss and went the opposite way.
Oh, thank God.
Talking about 22-year-old, like
executing,
right? Doing his job in a decisive moment. They said Mountain Warrior 6 is fine. They said Mountain Warrior 7 is dead. Okay. So I told him to get me out of that ditch. And they wanted to, like, drag me. I was like, just pop me. I have one good leg, I can hop. And I'm hopping. I saw some crazy stuff. I saw the suicide bomber's leg. Just a piece of his leg was right there. And then I got to Sergeant Major, and that's when I saw Command Sergeant Griffin, Major Gray, Major Kennedy, and Reggie Abdel Fattah were all killed. What's crazy about what happened is the fact that I lived when the guy detonated at my feet, but these guys were 40 feet away and died. And that is because the impact threw me, the concussion threw me, but the impact of the bomb, because the chest was connected to the floor or the ground, dirt ground, the ball bearings went that way instead of going in a big circle. They went one direction towards those 4 guys, and they killed those 4. And I'll never forget that. I don't talk about that piece because people like don't get it. But as I was looking at these guys, my friends, dead, local Afghans started coming towards the site. And I still had my pistol in my hand this whole time. And I saw this kid, maybe 18 years old, 20 years old, smiling, looking at the dead bodies, smiling. And I almost shot him. I mean, I was going to shoot him, by the way. It was like, but then that kid, Piet Ochart, grabbed my hand and was just like, ain't worth it, sir. We'll get him eventually. And then they put me in a truck. And that's when my war was over. But that's when also the pain showed up. So at that point, all this whole time in shock.
Right.
When they closed the door, they put me in an MATV, which is not it is not a vehicle to Casevac anyone out. No, it is 100%. It's like a Jeep, right, on steroids. So they put me in there, and there's a seat, and then there's the gunner's hatch and the weapon ammo cans and all that stuff, and then there's another seat. So they put me in there, and like my lower back is on the ammo cans, my leg is on one seat, my head's on one there, and I'm like holding on. At that point, my leg is on fire. Like, I mean, I feel like it's on fire. It's massive open wound and I've never felt this type of pain. And so the guys that come in to drive me to the luckily it was in Asadabad, so the local hospital's 8 minutes away, right? The first place where I'm going to give you surgery. So lucky for that. And the reason why I was in so much pain is we had so many injuries. We had over 20 plus injuries and some severe ones, right? Like Mahoney lost a piece of his arm, and O'Brien, that I woke up, lost a piece of his butt cheek. You know how pissed he was at me?
Because
he was sleeping. Nothing to do with this. And I forced him to come with me, and then I get him blown up.
Is he still mad at you?
I don't think so. I haven't talked to him in years. He probably doesn't want to talk to me. But so it took.
So did they give you anything?
No. All the morphine and all that stuff was gone for the other injuries because that was the last one they found.
So you went stone cold sober with your tibia and your foot backwards, and you med-backed out.
Yeah, so it took about 40 minutes to get there. So 40 minutes, I was like, this is agonizing pain. So it's funny because I'm telling you this story because the guy, Sergeant McCain, who was what we call a truck commander, so in the right seat of the vehicle in the front of that's taking me to the hospital,
Yeah.
he knows I'm in pain, and I'm like pissed. Every curse word in the history of curse word was said.
Yep.
At every single Afghan that was in front of us, jingle trucks that was taking forever, and I was, forcing us to go really slow. And then,
And every bump feels
oh my God, it was just like, it was horrible. But he figured, I got to get this kid's mind off the pain. So brilliant NCO, non-commissioned officer, figures like, I was going to get him really mad at me because he's already mad at the world.
He's playing Jedi tricks.
So he turns around and he goes, "Sir, can you fucking stop bleeding on my seats?" And I was like, as he tells the story, he's like, I kind of stopped. I was shocked by that comment. Like, and I was like, I don't even want to respond. He's like, "No, seriously, sir, like, you're going to go home. You're going to be in a nice bed, hanging out, spending time with your girlfriends, whatever it is. And I'm going to be here for the next 3 months scrubbing this seat of your blood." And I'm like, "Are you fucking sure?" And so for like next 10 minutes, I'm screaming at this guy.
Yeah.
And finally,
perfectly.
So finally we arrived, and I'll never forget, like, we have a quick release in my plate carriers, right? And they're literally, I need morphine so bad that I'm willing to hop on my good leg. So I like literally, like, they open the door and I slide down, and they're like, my foot's disgusting, and I land on my right foot, and I'm like, and I just immediately release my plate carrier, so just all that's off.
Dope me up.
And then I start hopping, and they're like, "No!" They grab me, and the doctors and nurses like, "Shut, you're idiot, stop, you're an idiot." Yeah. And then they put me in this like wheelchair, whatever. I don't even know how they put me in, and they got me in there, and then they just stuck me.
Go to sleep.
I started going to sleep.
So aside from the sort of the blackout few minutes, right? Like, everything else you were conscious for.
Yeah.
And so dreams, nightmares, like, relive. How has
it's I spent, after that, I had surgery in Asadabad, and I flew back from that hospital to Jalalabad with the bodies next to me. And that's something that, I had dreams about a lot. It was tough. And then I spent the next 5 months as an inpatient at Walter Reed Hospital. Along the journey, I went to Germany and different places. Yeah. I think for the first 3, it was the hardest moments of my life, because you're in this environment that you're in a hospital bed for. I was there for 4 straight months. Didn't move, right?
Yes, why? And then me, survivor's guilt.
So I didn't have yes. Why me? Yes, 100%. Like,
what could I have done?
Why did I live, and why did these guys die? And what could I have done to change the outcome? Could I save them? Could I replace them? Right? And then you start going through, like, what do I bring to the table versus these guys? Griffin had 2 kids. One of them was in the Army. Kennedy had twins that were a year old. Gray had 3 beautiful kids. Reggae had 2 kids, 14 and 16-year-old boys. I was single at the time, broke up with the girlfriend, during the middle of deployment. Like, I was looking to go to Paris and party. Right? I mean, my life was Army, bars, friends. I didn't bring anything to the table other than service. And these were like amazing people. And I lived, and they didn't. And he detonated at my feet. And it was my patrol. I was in charge of the security. And so I had a lot of anger, a lot of survivor's guilt, a lot of sadness. And then the whole, I can't run.
Yeah, you're physically.
And so then I started really, like, thinking about August 7th.
Not running.
And then the other piece was I needed to get promoted. So going back to your question, yes. On July 26th, the list came out that I was promoted to captain. So it was officially a captain. August 8th was going to be the date that when we came back from that patrol, I was being promoted to captain and everything set up. So now I was promoted in the hospital, and all I could think about was, like, I don't deserve this. And I hated myself. Then you add the medication, oxys, morphine, Dilaudid, IV Benadryl to go to sleep at night. And then you're no longer in control of your own brain and emotions. So all your demons start to kick in. And so they tell you that you're a piece of shit. You don't deserve to be here. You should be dead. You should take your place. And
did you wish you were?
Oh yeah, I mean, I became suicidal to the point where you're trying to figure out how to kill yourself. It's actually really hard to kill yourself in the hospital. I didn't realize that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, you're trying to figure it out, but it's such a contained environment. There's always somebody around. But and I was in a really dark place, and I think people started to notice because I was just angry and I didn't want to talk to anyone. And then this guy walked into my room on November 12th, 2012. And he walked in with no limbs. I think you know him. No limbs, just 4 prosthetics with a smile on his face, a stupid Detroit Lions hat. And he said, "Wow, what a great day to be alive. What a great day to be an American." It was Travis Mills. And
the one and only, man.
The one and only. And in 15 minutes, this dude kind of like rewired me in a way of saying, "Hey man, like, you're alive. Like, we're alive. I got blown up by a bomb. I have no more limbs, but we're blessed. We're here. We have stories. We have opportunities to serve in ways that we never thought we could, to impact other people." Like, and he's like, "Dude, you have 4 lives, 4 families now that you get to live for and like represent and honor. You get to tell their stories. You get to tell," and he just, in a Travis Mills way of like so motivating and like impactful, right?
Yeah.
He gave me a purpose.
Yep.
And I found a little glimpse of light in a really, really dark place.
It's a big pivot, man.
Yeah, because of that, I remember going to sleep that night saying, I'm going to stop complaining about my injuries and my situation. And I'm going to stop like being angry at the world and trying to blame everything, and myself to include.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to find a positive in this whole thing, and I'm going to go change. I'm going to go tell their stories.
What a gift, because I think he gave you the permission slip. Because I think you would have came to that at some point, or maybe not. Maybe you'd have been a statistic, but I think he reminded you that the fight isn't over, even if the fighting field looks different.
Right.
And I think that's what you've done. I mean, that's what the cool part between us is. You know, I meet Staff Sergeant Travis Mills when I retire from, the football, and I have an identity crisis. I'm numbing myself with pain pills. I'm depressed. I'm suicidal. I don't know why does David matter unless I'm playing football, because I was great at that.
Yeah.
And then I meet this guy that, again, same thing, no arms, no legs. I challenge him to work out. Pretty soon it's like, well, that makes the game of football look silly, right? And the violence that we went through. And it became this thing where I realized, man, like, Travis did the same thing that he did for you, but for me, and set a path for me to find a new discovery that was really my purpose for my life, which is to help people discover the parts of themselves when they think that they were broken. And it, in fact, is the parts of their scars that qualify them to be greater.
Yeah.
When you left the hospital in Walter Reed, did you have a clear vision for yourself? Or was it sort of just, I need to put the next foot in front?
So it took a long time for me to, that was the first step of a long process. Then you got to figure out how to heal and move on.
What do you do with the anger? I mean, I know Travis gave you a little bit of a shift, but like, that's every time your foot hurts, I'm pretty sure you got a little angry.
No, I got motivated.
Oh.
I didn't get angry anymore about my injuries. One, I got motivated in the sense like the anger and the frustrations and all the demons, he became he became their worst enemy, because what he brought was light and hope. When you have light and hope, then everything they were telling me just goes away. It's like, And really, what I got out of that conversation is a motto that I live by now, which is find a positive in every negative situation. Yeah. When you're going through something really bad, identify a positive in there and then make that your prime focus. I'm not saying ignore the bad. I'm just saying don't make that the focal point. Yep. And so for me, he told me, hey, you have the ability to highlight and tell the stories of those who didn't come home. Yeah. Like, you're their voice. Every time you do anything going forward, you can tell their story. How amazing is that? And I was like, wow, that's incredible. So then you start going through a process, and I knew that if I was going to do that, I need to work on myself. So one, they were telling me like, I'll never be able to run again, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't believe in that. Yeah. That's why I'm so attracted to, I was attracted to what you're doing with ATF, right? Because I had doctors that told me that just really diagnosed me and told me my future. I didn't believe in that future, right? Yeah, maybe I'll need an IDO brace, maybe something, but I'm going to run again. Yeah. So then that became my mission. And I worked hard, man, in PT and OT and all that stuff. So that became my focal point, my focus for the next year and almost year and a half, was to learn how to walk again and then beat the odds. And it was hard because there was a lot of ups and downs. I had,
how many surgeries?
30, I'm at 34, which is nothing compared to others, but still it's a significant amount, but nothing compared to guys who have like 80, 100. That's my problem. I was limb salvage, so they skin graft me. I had a lot of infections. So when you think you made it through this pivotal moment, you're kicked back out. And that was really frustrating. And, but I always said to myself, I'm not going to allow that to dictate me. So for example, the last infection I had was pretty significant. Before the last one. So the one in the Walter Reed. But in my foot, the top of my foot on this side, on this left foot I saw a blister, tiny little blister. And when you see blisters on where they close off your open wound, I was like, I don't like it. So I was like, I'll give it a day. And the next morning, that blister was 3 times the size and had a bubble. So immediately, thank God I lived at the hospital. I went to the emergency room and I said, I think I have an infection. So they took me to wound care. And Cara Couch was my wound care specialist. She's amazing. She took a Q-tip, and I have a picture of this. She took a Q-tip and popped that bubble, and then it opened up, and you could see the bone and all that stuff. And I was just like, and I'm numb. Thank the Lord. Like I can't feel anything below the left knee. So I was like, ugh. I'm looking at this. I'm like, this is ugly. Yeah. And she said, oh, yeah, you have a severe infection. We need to, so she called the surgeon and I needed to operate that night because that probably would have led to amputation rather quickly if it spreads.
Do you think, is amputation something that long-term may have to?
Maybe. It's, I still have like so many issues. Like right now, my right knee and things like that. I probably need to talk to Luke. But
hey, they cut off your leg. I'm your trainer, bro.
Yeah, well, it cut my leg. I'd probably be a good spot. But I'm waiting for like the iRobot legs.
Yeah,
so I'm just kind of waiting for it to take time.
Yeah, at that point, they may just be able to regrow legs.
Well, the way they're doing it, right? No kidding. But so we went to surgery, and then after that, the sucky part about that was the surgery was rather quick. You're in there. I do one more night over there, and then I'm back in my room, and I have a boot, whatever. What I had though was a PICC line, and a PICC line. So for those who don't know PICC lines, it's a line that went from here and it goes all the way up to your heart, and that's where I would put the antibiotics every 8 hours for the next 6 weeks. And so it was really annoying, and it really impacted my quality of life to an extent. And I remember like feeling annoyed with that, and immediately I stopped myself. I was like, no, who cares? That is what I need to do now, right? This is how I beat this infection, and this is what I do. So I'm not going to allow that to dictate how I live my day to day. So if I want to go watch football, I'm going to go to the bar with PICC line. I took that a little extreme. So we would go to the bars, and my boys would always call me now every Friday and Saturday, maybe Thursdays, and be like, we're going to a bar in DC or Bethesda, Maryland. And then I'll be at the bar, and at some point be like, oh, my watch would ring. Cool. So I would just like have my little bag with fanny pack, and I'd take my ball of antibiotics, my wipes and all that stuff, and I would just take that one ball out, and then just I would plug it in, clean it up in the middle of the bar, and and people were like watching me like, what is going on with this dude?
Savage.
And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna live my life. I don't care. I'm not gonna let it dictate who I am, and I'm not gonna let any negativity.
Mindset, man. It's so cool to me to have the perspective that we do, the impact Travis Mills had in your room, and the trajectory, how that changed the course. And the same thing, right? Where the Adaptive Training Foundation, the gym, the work that we've done, together for the last 10 years through the gym and the nonprofit, it doesn't happen without. But it's also super cool. I go back to fate. We met at a pretty unique place.
Yeah.
In time.
White House, yeah.
Yeah, the South Lawn of the White House.
Yeah, it's like, that's pretty fun.
Oh, Obama threw the South by South Lawn because he went to South by Southwest in Austin, loved it, and was like, I'm going to do this, which was sick. He had like Common, Leonardo DiCaprio was there.
That's crazy.
Like it was an amazing day, but I so distinctly remember talking with you and Carson. And I don't remember a ton of the conversation, but I do remember, I think I felt like I came off like way too much. I remember thinking, I was so excited and found out about your story and what the Starbucks people had told me about you that I felt like I was almost manic. Like I was fired up and connected with you, but you were so real and so sincere, genuine. We took pictures together, we talked, and I loved Carson. Thank God you married her. It took you too long, but at that time you guys were dating.
Well, I look. We needed to make sure she wanted to be with me for the long run. So we took the time. Make sure. Are you sure you want to do this?
Yeah.
Next year. You sure you want to do this?
I think you had commitment problems, but
no. I tell you what. I remember that day very specifically, and I remember being incredibly impressed by just the passion that you demonstrated that day. And so
you took it that way.
No, yeah. I mean, I thought I was like, dude, this guy, like, who are you? And like, you light up the room, and it was outdoors. And so, and the Starbucks people were raving about you and the work, and the work that I was doing at the time, it attracted me as like, okay, I want to know more.
Yeah.
I want to know more about it because I think that we can potentially help. And that's how we connected.
Right. You were working at Boeing.
I was working at Boeing. I was running their military affairs philanthropic side of the house. And we had our Texas, group. And I thought, what a great way to really highlight some of our commitments in the community then, through a partnership with you. Yeah. And that was like early on, like I think when in Boeing's relationship with ATF, and now it's grown and grown and grown.
We're about to go over $1 million in funding with them this year.
It's unbelievable. That to me, but you know what? Why I love that company? It's because they truly walk the walk, and when they find something, they don't just do it for a year or two. They want to continue. They really are committed to the long run and long path.
The cool part about them too wasn't just, hey man, we need you to have 10,000 people you serve. They were about the depth.
Yeah,
we'd done it. I remember the first time you came to Texas and you were speaking at a country club. You did an amazing keynote. It was the first time I sort of got to hear your story, and obviously we're gonna
Dude, I sucked, man.
No.
I was a really bad public speaker. Ask Carson.
We're
bring it on there.
Into this because the Medal of Honor, the Congressional Medal of Honor, right, which you were awarded.
Yeah.
I want to get to kind of, again, this all happened on August 8th, 2012, and it's not like the next week they give you the freaking Medal of Honor, right?
No.
It's years later. But when I got to hear you speak, and afterwards we go out, this is back when we used to drink a little bit more.
When I lost the medal, yeah.
So we go out and we're banged up. I mean, we were banged up. I think I helped carry you into the Uber.
Yeah, thanks.
And we get Carson Flo in the Uber, and I'll never forget my phone ringing early the next morning because you had to fly out.
No, yeah, I had to fly out because I was missing the tournament, yeah.
And I hear, bro, I can't find the medal. Can you go to the bar? And it's like 7 a.m. or something.
Yeah.
Much less I'm hungover as hell because of how hard we went.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to get to Vernon's. And did you check with the Uber? And you're like, oh, hang on. And do you want to tell it?
Yeah. So first of all, you go to the bar or you call the bar and we wake somebody up to go check. And they like we found it. We're like, oh, that's awesome. Like, they found a coin.
They found a military challenge coin.
One of my military coins, which is not a Medal of Honor.
No.
But it has a Medal of Honor emblem on there. I was like, duh. So like all this hope. So finally, like I'm trying to figure out, I never lost anything on Uber. So I was like, okay, Uber, good, lost and found. And they have a really cool system where like you could actually, they connect with the driver from that ride. And
what have they told you previously, like the government? Like the FBI about your medal, and or if something happens, if you get held at gunpoint, somebody steals it. Like, do they brief you on all that?
No, not really. I mean,
don't be an idiot.
We had no briefings at all. Like it's like you get the Medal of Honor, and like, there's nothing. We're actually creating a
course.
Not a course. We're creating a document right now. Britt Slabinski is taking lead on that. He's written an entire from A to Z, what this means to be a Medal of Honor, SOPs, how you dress, and things like that. So like we never had that. It's just guessing game. And you hopefully another recipient like Sal Junta gives you, sort of the way forward. But
so you called the Uber.
So I called the Uber, and Uber connects me with a driver, and I said, "Hey, did you happen to find a necklace?" That's what I called it.
You're trying to be discreet.
And he's like, "Yes, I found a blue necklace." And I was like, "Where is it?" He's like, "In my car." I said, "Where are you?" And he goes, "I'm going to work." Quiznos, of all places. And I said, "Where are you? Where is this Quiznos? Because we're coming." And I was like, "I'd like to, come get it, and I'll give you some money." So we went to ATM, and I got I wasn't making it was like $150, whatever I got, $100. And I went and I went inside the Quiznos, and the guy's like comes out, goes to his car and gives it to you. He's like, that is a nice necklace. I was like, yes, it is. You know what this is? He's like, no. I was like, okay. And I give him money. I was like, thank you, my friend. And I remember thinking like, wow, I just got the Medal of Honor, and this dumbass is going to lose it in an Uber. And what happened was, I guess I had it on, I took it off, and I thought I put it in my pocket. I was drunk, and I just completely missed it, and it was there. But this guy had no idea what it was.
Oh, bro. I have your blue necklace.
Yeah, I have your blue necklace.
So let's talk about time passes. And again, you knew you were up for some potential awards or medals.
Distinguished Service Cross.
Distinguished Service Cross. And, time passes, it can be years.
Right.
And you're working on an agency side. We don't have to go too deep into all that. Right. But you realize after you were discharged, right? Like probably if they amputate, you may have stayed back in. You end up limb salvage. You end up being medically discharged. You get in on an agency side where you're doing field work, and there's it's a balance. You're liking it.
You get a call one day at the job. What does that call tell you?
Not only do I get a call one day at the job, I get a call. I'm in right by Area 51 in a place called Nevada, and we're doing helo inserts with some special operations and case officers, and I'm in a support role because I'm new. I'm to this position, and I'm training, and I'm like watching, supporting, but I had no cell phone service the entire time. It was awesome, man. It's like you're off the reservation, like you're with the cool guys. No, I did not see any aliens. I was looking for aliens every day. And so I'm in a chow hall, and I walk out, and I had my phone on me just for like time purposes, and boom, it rings. It's like, what? I had no service the entire time I was there for about a week, and I pick it up and like, hello? It's like, is this Captain Groberg? Like, yeah, I retired because I'm a civilian now.
Life, yeah.
I work for the government. They say, hey, this is Colonel Slaney from the Pentagon. Just want to call you, letting you know that on Monday, September 21st, you'll be receiving a phone call from a senior high-ranking official at the Pentagon between the hours of 1400 and 1430. Is this a good number for you to receive that call? Yes, sir. All right, don't miss that call. Roger that. Who is it? Click. All right. What? Look at my phone. No service. I was like, there's no way. I work for these people. They just turn on.
Satellite tower.
Yeah. Talk about fate, right? You know what I'm saying? Like it somehow worked.
Crazy.
And then I told my boss at the time, and he said, what the hell did you do in Afghanistan? I said, well, and not in a good way. He's just what? He's like, and I said, well, I don't know, man. A lot of things. Yeah. He's like, well, you should have a lawyer ready, and if it's good news, we'll give you a half day. So I went to work that morning on September 21st. So we flew back in that weekend from Nevada, and then on Monday I went to work, and I was in a cover for status type of office. So no one knows what you do there. Yeah. Went to work that morning, and that afternoon, and we were chatting. He said, look, it's probably, he said, what do you think it is? And I said, obviously, I don't think it's me doing anything wrong. That's not how they call you, right? They don't call you and say,
no.
But I do believe it's the Distinguished Service Cross, because that's what they put me in years ago, and I thought they forgot about it. And one of the guys that just received the medal, Kyle Carpenter, Marine, when he tells his story, and I was just on the phone with him the other day, he said that he got a call saying the White House was going to call him, right? So it's like, okay, because the Medal of Honor thought came probably 9 months prior, when someone that was working at the HRC in the Army called and said, hey, I think they're looking at you for Medal of Honor.
Because there was a big investigation over everything.
Well, there's an investigation about like who the hell to blame for this shit.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought I was going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
When they came in and investigated me in the hospital, telling me like,
all the senior leaders.
Why did you take all the seniors? Why did you not have all your security? Why did you make that decision? Blah, blah, blah. And I was, we didn't talk about this, but I had a brain injury also.
Right.
I didn't remember anything for 6 to 8 weeks.
That's a scary position to be in.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Like, I mean, they show you pictures of a giraffe and you know what it is, but you just cannot, and I have those issues still to this day. Sometimes I'm trying to remember like names or, things like that. And you can't do simple math, like how many quarters in a dollar, right? You know the answer, you just can't figure it out. So when they were asking me all these questions and I couldn't give them the answer, it was really frustrating them. And they thought I was hiding something. I was like, I'm not hiding anything. I just can't remember. I got blown up, dude. We're trying to figure out, my boss is like, probably the Distinguished Service Cross. So we come back and I tell Carson, I think it might be the Distinguished Service Cross. And so we just waited and we were watching Ellen. And it was kind of funny, I was just sitting there watching Ellen. The phone rang. I pick it up, my cell phone, pick it up, and I'm like, hello? Like, is this Captain Retired Flo Groberg, Florent Groberg? Yeah, roger that. Would you mind, this is so-and-so from the White House, you mind holding for the president? I said, nope, good, okay. What? Did not expect that.
Your stomach?
Yeah, I just didn't expect that. And then next thing you know, hey, Flo, it's Obama. I'm like, hi, Mr. President. He's like, man, long time. He's like, we know each other. We're friends.
Chi-Town boys.
And I'm like, yeah, yes, Mr. President. He's like, oh, you don't have to call me Mr. President. Call me Obama. I was like, no, Mr. President. Roger that, Mr. President. And he's like, well, I'm calling you to let you know that I'm going to be presenting you with a Medal of Honor. And I'm super proud and honored that I get to present you to a Medal of Honor and hear what it means and hear the responsibilities behind that. And then he closed out with, I have one specific order. You can't talk to anyone about this until we make an announcement. Then Roger, Mr. President, and he said, looking forward to seeing you and hanging out. I said, okay. And he hung up. And then we went back to watching Ellen for like 5 minutes. He was on speakerphone and Carson goes, what just happened? And I said, I think our lives just changed. I just don't know how.
Wow.
And I never thought I'd ever be associated with that world or the society. I didn't understand what it did. I just knew it was massive. I just didn't know what it was. And then my life completely changed. So immediately I called my mom. I broke a direct order from the President of the United States 5 minutes later because I knew if I didn't tell her, she was going to lose her shit. So I told her, and I lied to her too, I said, the president specifically mentioned your name and said, you tell Clara that if she says anything to anyone or puts it on social media, that she is banned from coming to the White House. She's like, he said it about me? I was like, yes, you, mom, not dad, you. She's like, okay, I won't tell anyone. And she didn't.
Respect, mama.
The only time I've ever in my life seen my mom speechless. If you think I talk, she talks. Only time is when she met President Obama in my hospital room in 2012, and then when she was at the White House. She just couldn't talk. Wow. She just loves him so much, I guess, or something. She's just like, and my dad's like, we need to have him around more often.
That's the ultimate silencer.
He's just telling me that. And then after that, I called my boss and I said, hey, I haven't received a Medal of Honor. He said, okay, you can't come back to work.
Yeah, now you're a target.
Yeah, 100%, and we'll figure it out. So then they gave me a cover. So then they put me at the Pentagon, of all places, ODNI, and they gave me a cover. And because I had to go through all these media interviews, so I had media training and media interviews, and I couldn't tell them that I worked for an agency. I couldn't tell them what I did. A lot of people, even the agency, knew me from a different name, right? And so it was kind of like nuts. And they said my cover was that I was a wounded warrior that was transitioning out of the Army and that I was doing an internship at ODNI. I said, okay. So people at ODNI thought I was a wounded warrior transitioning, and then no one knew. Wow. And so I told, now if you go back and there's a bunch of interviews about me and what do you do now? And I tell them, I'm transitioning out and stuff. So I lied to so many people about who I was and what I was doing. And then they put me in an office job for about 6 months before they told me that it's probably not the right career path at this point because of the exposure.
Yeah.
So.
And then tell me, ceremony, man. How crazy, how cool.
Well, I tell you one thing about the Medal of Honor was,
because you're the first immigrant
since Vietnam, to get it. But you're going to appreciate this. It's a crazy situation where think about a wedding on steroids, right? Because they give you they announce it and then they give you literally 2 weeks to invite X amount of people. So you have to put a list of who you want to invite. So the priority and the people that I called first, and I told them I will not accept this medal unless you're there, are the Gold Star families. The only one that didn't show up is Reggae because his wife, they were Egyptian of descent, right? And so he was an immigrant as well. And when he died, his wife, who barely spoke English, went back to Egypt and brought the kids. So they couldn't come. But I called Pam, right? I called Cami, I called Heather, and I told them, this is about your husbands. And this represents your husbands. I know they're honoring me, but I cannot accept this without your blessing and without you being there. So they came. And after that, my family, then a couple of my close friends from high school and college, and then my teammates, of course. And so you have to go through this list, and you have to choose people that that you really like, but you don't have room. And then you have to go through this. It was almost 5 weeks of media training at the Pentagon. Thank God I was stationed at the Pentagon because I had to be there often. Mm-hmm. And it gets really frustrating because every topic you can think of, you need to be prepped for. And at the time, it was about the sexual harassment cases in the Army that were really prevalent. And so, I had to learn how to block and bridge, right? Where they ask you a question and you're like, oh, I hear you, but I'm here to talk about the medal and what it represents to me.
You're ready for politics now.
And so, yeah. Kidding. Not politics, I just make shit up. And just, but anyway. So we did that, and that was interesting. And then my work, trying to figure out what to do. So my work was great because they were the first 6 weeks they said, just deal with this, it's your job. And that's the beauty of work for the government because you work for them anyway. And then you go through the week of the ceremony. And the week of ceremony is nuts because all your guests show up on that Monday, Tuesday.
Cool.
And specific guests. It was the first time we were all reunited. That's what I love about the medal, is the first time my entire team from August 8th was reunited. Yeah. And we got to go through interviews together. And I had interviews from all the TV channels in the US, but also in France. Because the French really loved that one. Hey, that's us,
boy,
man.
Baby,
you know what I mean?
boy.
So all the
French ghettos.
And so I had to brush up on my French and all that stuff. And I watched those interviews today and I'm like, my God, I was horrible. You know what I mean? I didn't do this. I didn't speak about, first of all, I did not talk about August 8, 2012 for years. I literally tried to do everything that I could to move on from it, right? And now, in the course of the last 6 weeks, I'm talking about it every day. And now it's the week of the medal and it's live and we did about 60 interviews. And I'm talking about the same thing over and over again. It was just really weird. How do you feel? I don't know how to feel. What does it mean to receive a medal? I don't know. I haven't received it yet, right? Things like that. And and then I had my topics where I'm really honored, the fact that I get to represent my nation, things like that. And today, if you asked me what would have said, I would have been I really don't know what to expect. The one thing that I'm happy about is I get to spend time with my friends who I serve with. That's what I would have just said. Because that's really what it meant. Yeah. And it was emotional. We drank a lot. We shared a lot. It was great. Now, the day before the Medal of Honor, I received the Medal of Honor, I was painting Carson's apartment.
Love that. Yeah.
And Obama thought it was so funny. President Obama thought it was so funny. Yep. He called it a honeydew list. And in his speech, he's like, you still got the honeydew list. Doesn't matter if you're coming to the White House, you get the Medal of Honor, you still gotta go. Yeah, I promised Carson I would paint her apartment before she moved into my apartment. And here I am. I forgot to do it. And she goes, you're gonna paint my apartment. So I showed up that morning, I'm painting.
Your wife's the
best. What is this thing? Right, keep me real. And then I got the medal. And you just don't know what to expect until you get there. And the first piece is you arrive, and my family in Carson, we went to the Oval Office and got to spend time with President Obama. He signed a certificate. He made some jokes. And what was so impressive about him, I don't care if you respect him or not for his politics, right? I don't think anyone can say a negative thing about that man as a person.
Right.
But what was the most impressive thing about President Obama is the fact that on September 11, 2012, he came to visit a bunch of us at Walter Reed Hospital. He spent 15 minutes in my room. He wanted no cameras. We took a couple pictures, that was it at the start, but then no cameras, nothing. He had one individual in there for security. It was just him and one security person. And we talked for 15 minutes. And when my mom was speechless is because when we went into the Oval Office, he remembered specific parts of the conversation he had with my mom. No one's taking notes. No one's reminding him. And a completely insignificant part of the conversation with my mom, and he brought it up to her. And I'm thinking, this happened over 3 years ago, and you're the president of the United States. Every day, you're fed a million pieces of information that are the course of our nation.
Yeah, world order.
World order.
Yeah.
And you remember this? Like, yeah,
Special.
I'll never be president. You know what I mean? Like, it's unbelievable. And so I was super impressed. But when we walked, him and I, we chatted, and we made it to the room, and he did the presentation. I remember standing there and just scanning the room, and every leader from our government is there, from the Pentagon. We have some senators, congressmen, congresswomen. My team's there, my family's there. The Gold Star families are there. So many reporters from around the world there. It's fascinating, and it's about you, and you're standing on this stage, and all I could think was like, I felt like a fraud. Because you never join the military to be singled out. You always do it as a team. Remember how my favorite part of track and field was a relay? Well, my favorite part about serving was the people, and that we did it together. And so the fact that I was singled out and recognized felt so uncomfortable, and you felt like a fraud. And this entire time, like, people can notice I'm like emotional, and I'm like this face. I'm thinking like, this is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And you listen to the citation, and then after that, in the middle of it, my leg starts to shake because I was standing for a long time, and I'm thinking, Mr. President, you better start talking faster, man. Let's get this show on the road, because I'm about to fall out. Mm-hmm. And literally, as I was about to fall out, I was deciding to fall. The president got behind me, and at that point, they're reading the citation, and he's standing right behind me, and I'm like, I'm gonna fall out. And I'm trying to decide if I fall forward in front of those people who are staring at me, like, that I've never met, like right there, or do I fall backwards on the president? And then the thinking process is, will he catch me, right? And by the time I made the decision to go backwards, he just put the medal around me.
Wow.
And then we were done.
Wow.
And then he has this power. So obviously you can tell I have a tremendous amount of respect for President Obama. He has this power of making you feel not only like you belong, but like that you're in the right place. And the thing that he did to make me feel that way is that he knew how I felt. One, he brought the family, he made sure the family were recognized. He told them to ask them to stand up, and then everyone to clap for them, because they were the true heroes of this whole day. And then two, the amount of time he spent with them. We played rock, paper, scissors with Grace's kids, the pictures, the time he gave them, and he was genuine about it. That was an amazing moment. And then it's done, and you're part of that society.
Yeah. What for you, I mean, I understand standing up there for what you just described, but what was the most difficult part as more recognitions came and more opportunities to not just have to retell this story, but to tell what you were going to do with this opportunity and this platform now?
To make sure I'd never lose myself, and that I never buy into the whole mindset that, you're a D- celebrity, right? You know what I mean? Whatever, F+ celebrity. You have a Wikipedia page. Congratulations. Wow. That I never lose who I am, and that I remember forever what it represents. And it's not mine. That medal is not mine. It is the United States of America. It's every one of us. It belongs, represents us, but it's more specifically Griffin, Gray, Kennedy, and Reagan's. And so, I should never feel like I'm owed anything. I don't deserve that. That is, instead, I should feel like I owe this medal, and my friends when you come home, a lot. And so I need to represent it. And that's how I felt. And so the decision that I made that day is that I'm not going to live off this medal. I'm going to work even harder than I ever thought I'd ever work. I'm going to put myself in positions that are incredibly difficult that I never thought I would be in and put myself in, and then I'm going to go earn that. And the last thing I'd ever want to be remembered, which is obviously not going to happen, but is that I am a Medal of Honor recipient. I want to be remembered as a great husband and father, a businessman that gave back a ton in his community, and a service member that served in a time of war, and then maybe finally also earned a Medal of Honor. So I made that decision really early on.
Well, as your friend and someone who's known you since 2016, I think that you've lived that and continue to live that. I mean, what you've accomplished personally, corporately, privately. I mean, the work, we cited the Boeing work, now with Microsoft, you're on Adaptive Training Foundation's board, you're on with others, that you are always, I mean, when we pulled out of Afghanistan, you were critical in so many of those interpreters and so many of those Afghans, like getting them to safety, getting them and their families out. And that's something that, few people know unless they know you deeply. Yeah. And that's, to me, I mean, I admire the hell out of you, man, and respect you even more because I know what motivates you, and it's not, you're leading in the way that it's necessary, and none of the credit matters to you, bro.
Well, I appreciate that. And, there was so many different groups of individuals who are part of those efforts to get our translators and allies out of Afghanistan. Heather Gray, who's one of the widows, Major Gray's wife, was such an unbelievable leader in helping getting Reggie out of Afghanistan. One of those interpreters, I got 2 of them out specifically, and I helped others with through different programs. But those 2 individuals are the ones I focused on. And Reggie, she's just adopted him from the moment he got on the States, and she's such an unbelievable woman. But yeah, it was fascinating to see how many of us banded together to get those folks out. It was unbelievable actually. Utilizing Signal and working with Maxar to get aerial views and communicating back with people underground in Afghanistan.
It was an operative, man.
It was
real life.
We put some operations. I mean, to be very, very I won't give details, but I was working with Delta directly, communicating with Delta operators to get Reggie out. And I mean, you could literally make a movie about this. I'm on the phone with Reggie and telling him, "You need to go now. You need to go now." And he's saying, "No, they've got the roadblocks." I'm like, "Okay, this is what you tell them. This is when they stop you. This is your storyline. You need to go now. You need to go take this street, go to this street, and meet with this person. It's going to look like this. Going to pick you in. You need to go now, Reggie. If you don't go now, I can't get you out." And he was just like, he went. He was trying to go home. And I was like, he's like, "My kids, I haven't eaten and drank water in 2 days." And I was like, "I don't care, Reggie. Go now. This is that moment. Suck it up, and then we're going to get you out." And next thing you know, I get a picture from those Delta operators with Reggie and his entire family. And you're just big 2 weeks of just, operating as a private citizen.
Yeah. I hope we see that movie.
I mean, and by the way, there's better ones.
As you look at what drives you today, I noticed the first thing out of your mouth was great husband, great father. Mm-hmm. It's pretty cool. You got a little man now.
Yeah.
Talk about sort of what's the next ridgeline, man. I mean, you've made tremendous impact and continue to use relationships and resources to help better what you believe in. So what drives you? What's next?
What's next is continuing the path I'm on, and just with more opportunities for personal growth, obviously, and professional development, but more opportunities for impact. In essence, I've been working with Microsoft for the last three and a half years on national security side of the house, and I was just in Seattle this week to go talk to some of our top customers, the Lockheed, Boeing, Raytheons, and many others. And I was at this breakfast event with some of their senior leaders, and they asked me to go and make a speech about the work that we're doing. And I started that speech by just telling them, I'm here to let you know, forget Microsoft and what we're doing and our partners and stuff. I'm here to let you know, to say thank you. That's what I said. I'm here to say thank you. And I hope that if you take anything out of any words that I'm going to be speaking today, that you go back to your teams and you say thank you as well, because every single one of you, every single one of your companies is actively impacting national security every single day. And so for me, it's the ability to continue serving in a different fashion, in two different facets. One is in the commercial, corporate, government side of the house, providing our warfighter and decision makers and intelligence community leaders with the right tools and technologies to make more decisive, speedy decisions that protect our nation and allies. We have amazing threats out there, and we need technology and government to be hand in hand, working together to make sure that we always remain the strongest, best country in the world, and that we provide our allies with the same type of securities. And so this is where I'm at on the professional side of the house. I've been doing this with Boeing and now Microsoft. And then on the community side, working with you, working with other groups, right, to make sure that we never forget where we come from, that we never forget that we have a family that is there to help us, whether it's on the emotional or physical side of the house, recovery side of the house, or the transitional aspect, from to corporate, educational, entrepreneurship, whatever it is, that we have, the right groups working together, banding together, supporting each other. And you play such a massive role as a non-vet in our veteran community, in our law enforcement, first responder community, but also obviously in our athletic community. That's unbelievable. So to me, having the opportunity to support organizations such as, Adaptive Training Foundation that you started based upon that one random encounter with Travis, and it gives you this whole mission, and to supporting Warriors Ethos, right, who helped me in my early stages of my transition to identify in where I could potentially make a transition into in terms of corporate, where I could find a new passion and mission, to organizations such as Wounded Warrior Project that I'm officially joining today as a board member. A group that has done so much and lost its identity for a little while, and was, honest enough to bring in a great leader like General Linnington to get them back on the path where now I feel like I can get back in with an amazing group of individuals and continue the original mission and pushing and supporting our community. So these are really important missions. And the last piece is things like American Battle Monument Commission, being presidentially appointed as a commissioner to look at our cemeteries and monuments around the world where, our men and women put their lives on the line and, then come home, and making sure that we recognize those sacrifices. I'll be honest with you, I probably could have done a few of those things in my life, but the medal provided me a platform and a voice to be impactful. And so if you ask me what my voice is, what my moments are, my dedication is, the medal opened up a door, and I'm walking through that door with a whole mindset of doing more. And then I'll close out with my meeting Carcer was probably the greatest and most impactful moment of my life, because she found me in a really difficult time when I was in that mix of recovery. And I didn't sleep for 2 years. Really didn't sleep for 2 years. From August 2012 to October of 2014, I had to take Ambien to go to sleep. And I would only sleep a couple hours. It was miserable because of the thoughts, the memories, the anger, and the recovery later on, and just couldn't sleep. The first night that I got to sleep next to her, I'm not going to tell you exactly when that happened in our relationship, but it's the first night in 2 years I slept like 6-7 hours in a row without any I forgot my medication. It was unplanned. And I slept. And then I stayed, with her for the next 5 nights. And I slept every night. And so it reminded me of the most powerful lesson that I learned in life, which is that love can overcome anything. And when I went to war, I went to war with a lot of hatred. And I left war with a piece of my body missing, and a lot of pain, a lot of anger, but a clear understanding what true love is. True love of brotherhood and sisterhood. And the fact that I was able to to put my life on the line day in, day out, night in, night out for complete strangers, for individuals who didn't have the same background as me, that potentially I wouldn't even associate with outside of the military, for individuals with different educational background. Some of them grew up in different countries like I did. When I talk about true love, though, it's the fact that one of the most beautiful things about the military is the fact that you can be white, black, Asian, Hispanic, gay, straight, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian. You can be a Christian, a Muslim, atheist. You can be from Compton, California, or Belfast, Maine. You could be born in France or Zimbabwe. None of that matters. All those differences are put aside somehow in this environment where you have to learn how to work as a unit. You have to learn how to trust each other. And what is the most fascinating thing about that is that not only do you learn how to work and trust each other, but you come to love each other. Love each other so much that you're willing to die for each other. And when I talk about the fact that I went in with a lot of hatred and anger, and I left with a clear understanding of true love, I mean that. I mean that true love for brotherhood and sisterhood. And then when Carson shows up in my life and she's able to heal me without any type of magic or science or medication, just by being herself, it gives you a whole new perspective on life and faith. And so now with little O, Orden, in our world, and I get to look at him and just, his smile or his cries, right? And I'm just so blessed and excited. All I can think about is, boy, I can't wait to share those experiences and to see him go through these very, pivotal moments in his life and to see the man that he becomes. And I'm sure as hell going to work my ass off in my professional career to make sure that he lives in a safer world than it is today. So.
If there's one thing that you hope he knows most about you and the way you've lived your life, what is it?
That I never did anything just for me. And I learned that lesson early on in my life in track, but I really am, I'm a team guy, and that I'm willing to sacrifice it all for others. I mean, that matters to me. And that means that I'll be willing to sacrifice it all for him and whatever that, he needs in that requirement, or Carson. Yeah. And I just hope that he gets to live. I want him to be his own man. I don't want him to I don't hope for him to be like me or at all. I hope he identifies and finds a way to be the person that he wants to be. But I really hope he is one of those individuals that looks at others, or looks at a situation, and he wants to be a part of the solution because it matters for the people around him. And he does more for others than he ever does for himself. If he can do that, then maybe that's a lesson I would have taught him. But I'm not really worried about it.
Yeah, I think he's going to get a good example, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you for this, Flo, truly, man. You're a gift, bro. And as a friend and as a brother, as somebody that you say go, I'm all in.
Well, same here. That's why you say go. I follow you. You do, brother. Appreciate you.
Yeah, man.